Welcome back, everybody, to 31 1980s horror movies for Halloween, where I talk about my favorite horror movies from the 1980s. At number 9, we have David Cronenberg's The Fly.
My ear. No.
It's really interesting. I did a full review on The Fly, so I'll try not to repeat myself here. I apologize if I do. But the thing about The Fly is I've always loved this movie. It's always been a movie that I've enjoyed, but I never would have put it as my favorite Cronenberg movie. I don't think it would have made my top 10 80s horror movies. I don't even know if it would have made my top 50 horror movies in general. But watching it again, the movie has grown on me so much over the years. And again, this goes back into as you get older, your tastes change because you have new life experiences and it helps you identify with a movie more. The Fly is a metaphor for terminal illness, for dealing with a dying loved one. And during my times of seeing this movie, I had experienced that. I experienced a loved one dying. And that helped this movie connect with me so much more.
I'm scared. Help me. Please. Please help me.
The movie follows Seth Brundle, played by Jeff Goldblum, and for me this is his greatest performance. As much as I love him as Ian Malcolm, for me, Seth Brundle is his greatest performance.
What am I working on? I'm working on something that'll change the world and human life as we know it.
He befriends this reporter, played by Geena Davis, named Veronica, they call her Ronnie in the movie, and reveals to her that he has invented 2 telepods, for teleportation. He has invented teleportation, and he's trying to get to the point where he can transport living things through the machines. And one day he tests the teleporters on himself, and he doesn't realize that a fly has gotten into the chamber with them. And then he gets merged genetically with a fly, and he slowly starts transforming into a fly-like creature throughout the film.
That's not too terrible, is it? Most people would give anything to be turned into something else.
Turned into what?
What do you think, a fly? Am I becoming a 185-pound fly?
Meanwhile, before this happens, Geena Davis's character falls in love with him and they build a relationship. And then, as the movie goes on, you go from these 2 people who love each other to Geena Davis having to witness someone she loves turning into a fly.
I wanted to see you before.
I identified so much with Geena Davis's character in this movie because, again, this is someone who's witnessing someone they love go through, essentially die, going through a situation where they're dying. And she captures that element so well, dealing with the grief, not wanting to see the person like this, but wanting to be there for them. This is a perfect movie for anybody who has gone through loss to watch, in my opinion, even though it's incredibly gooey. That being said, the effects work in this is fantastic. Jeff Goldblum transforming into the fly and the makeup effects on that is great, which is interesting because he doesn't really start fully transforming. His transformations don't get extreme until the last act. But the movie is still fascinating before it gets to that point. You're still intrigued even though it takes so long for Jeff Goldblum to start transforming into the fly.
And I'll tell you, I think it's going to allow me to realize the personal potential I've been neglecting all these years, that I've been obsessively pursuing goal after goal.
Do you normally take coffee with your sugar?
What?
And then we have that final transformation where he turns into the fly-esque creature. And it's one of the greatest examples of practical effects in movies. For me, I would put this in the top 3. The transformation from American Werewolf in London, The Thing, and The Fly. These, I think, are the greatest examples of practical effects. And I love the final creature design. It's fly, it looks like a fly, and it's terrifying and gross. And we don't see it for that long. It's literally at the end of the movie when we finally see this fly-like creature. And it's so effective. It sticks with you so much. You really sympathize with Jeff Goldblum's character. Seth Brundle is such a likable guy, and he really doesn't deserve what's happening to him, but it's happening, and he's going through all the stages of what someone going through a terminal illness would go through. He goes through anger, he goes through denial, he goes through grief, he goes through acceptance.
I'm saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it. But now the dream is over.
The greatest scene in this movie is when Jeff Goldblum is talking to Ronnie about insect politics. And it's a scene that could come across as so goofy, but the performances make it work so well that it's one of the most tragic scenes, I would say, in all of cinema.
No, Seth.
I'm saying I'll hurt you if you stay.
So I just kind of became fascinated by how this is a movie that I've loved, but would not put it anywhere near a top 10, to it becoming in my top 10 favorite 80s horror movies, and in my top 20 favorite horror movies of all time. I would not be surprised if this movie got even higher on this list the more I watched it. I'm fascinated by how someone's tastes in movies can change as they get older, and The Fly is a perfect example of that for me. I absolutely love The Fly. And I would like to know from you, what's a movie that, I'm sure I've asked this before, but what's a movie that you ended up loving more as you've gotten older? A movie that your opinion on has changed as you've aged and had new experiences. But The Fly is a fantastic monster movie. It's a fantastic love story. This is a movie that, as gross as it is, as gooey as it gets, it's a movie that I honestly recommend to anybody, even people who are not big horror fans. I think that the love story angle of it, and the fact that it deals with terminal illness, is something that so many people can identify with that I would recommend The Fly to everybody. So yes, David Cronenberg's The Fly, one of the greatest horror movies of the 80s, and I would argue one of the greatest movies of the 80s.